Good morning, everyone, and I just wanted to say thank you, and I wanted to applaud Melissa for a lot of hard work she put into setting up this water basin forum up here. And luckily there is very little snow up here as well. I've been associated with the Lake Fork Watershed Working Group for a little bit over 6 years, and it's actually been a really big privilege to do so, because just even that 6-year span, I've seen a lot of really great work and interesting work, very much like Katie talked about, that's been accomplished in those 6 years. Now, the Watershed Group is basically one of dozens of watershed groups throughout the state of Colorado. It's a really extensive network. Every single group, it's very unique to that particular watershed. So the one I'm going to be talking about today is located in the west side of Lake County. And for the most part, these watershed groups are set up by grassroots organizations. They're typically collaborations among different entities, including federal governments, private governments, even nonprofit groups, and academic institutions. So the Lake Fork Watershed Working Group was established in 2000 to basically address water quality issues that were identified in the Lake Fork watershed. And it actually began with identifying the Gennaro mine complex as a significant loader of zinc and other associated heavy metals. So the Watershed Group is not really that unique. We actually hold quarterly meetings. We typically hold about 3 or 4 per year, and it's just mainly to get an idea about what is going on, what projects to take on next, and to help increase involvement in the Watershed Group. And so it's basically a public type entity. It's open to anyone who wants to attend, and there's a lot of very interesting type of work and discussions that go on. And so it's very interesting because throughout the 6 years I've been participating in the Lake Fork Group in particular, we've actually really built up the number of projects. And the nice thing about establishing a watershed group, it opens up several avenues of funding to accomplish all these projects that we have identified and want to pursue. And the nice thing about collaboration type work, especially in a watershed standpoint, is we bring to the table dozens of people with various types of backgrounds and expertises. So you don't have one person necessarily leading the group. We actually have several people who take control of these different projects and based off their expertise. And it's a really great educational experience. And that's why it's been very fun to have Colorado Mountain College as part of the Watershed Group. Student involvement is really, really high. And it's also open to the general public to participate in all of our activities as well. And so the students learn a breadth of experience. They get great hands-on experience. And then also through the meetings, they get the really in-depth technical background that's associated with all these projects that we have initiated through the Lake Fork Group. And so it also provides a significant avenue of communication amongst the citizens of Lake County, all the academic institutions, and basically all the project partners. And so if people are curious about what are we actually doing, instead of waiting once a year for a presentation like this, it's really integral to participate in these meetings, because you can also voice your concern, throw out ideas, and also it's a great learning experience. And also through collaboration, it's a great avenue for obtaining funding and identifying different sources of funding. So as we'll find out, actually, to fund these projects requires generally multiple sources of funds, because for the most part they're pretty expensive too. So Katie addressed one of our larger water quality issues in the Lake Fork watershed, but there's actually several of them that are known in this watershed. Most of them are related to past mining activities and their impact on water quality issues. So we have the watershed is actually a pretty significant size. It's approximately 55,000 square acres. It encompasses, let's see, Leadville is located down here, and here's Turquoise Lake. And Elbert, Mount Massive, and Hagerman Pass is located right in this general vicinity. And so it's a substantial watershed, and the type of ecology varies from the bottom, which is approximately about 9,500 feet in elevation, to the tallest mountain in Colorado. So we see a lot of variety from the ecological standpoint as well. Now, the Sugarloaf Mining District, kind of get an idea, is located right in here. And just this little spot is actually one of our major water quality issues that we're working on right now, out of 55,000 acres. So we have acid mine drainage issues, and so here's actually the Dinero Tunnel before they put the gate up. Here's a view of the Tiger Tunnel. There's the drainage flowing out towards the Arkansas Valley, which is located in the distance. And you can see the mine waste pile over here that used to exist in that particular area. And then this is actually located below the Dinero Mine portal. And so there's actually a few other draining tunnels located in the watershed, but these have been targeted for priority cleanup. So obviously we deal with heavy metal contamination. So most of the waters, receiving waters for acid mine drainage, have elevated levels of aluminum, cadmium, copper, zinc, lead, and manganese. A really nice cocktail. In addition to heavy metals, we also have sedimentation that's associated with all the road networks and also the mining issues that we're dealing with. And so we have, here's Lake Fork Creek and here's Colorado Gulch. And so generally during high flow, we typically see some good sediment loading that occurs from Colorado Gulch. And then you can see some sediment that deposits in some of the stream banks and even further on down the stream. And so throughout the years, we've identified these impairments just based off of years of monitoring in various studies. And so basically the idea is we would collect data. It would help us pinpoint from a watershed approach where the primary sources of sedimentation issues might reside, and also primary sources of heavy metals. And so what we find out, which is no surprise, we have drainage tunnels, we have mine waste piles, and then we have sedimentation from miles of unimproved roads in Sugarloaf Mountain. And then as a result, we have a couple impaired wetland areas as well. And so like I said, there's several to probably dozens of mine tunnels, adits, and shafts. And so the Dinero and Tiger, Bartlett, and Sawatch are just a few, and there's actually multiple of them. So some of them are sunken and just submerged with water. So we have vertical shafts and then horizontal tunnels. And some of them are very inconspicuous and they're hidden, but when we have high flow, lo and behold, we have springs that pop up from some of these vertical shafts. And erosion. Ooh, wrong button. So we have erosion that originates from roads, and then we also have erosion issues associated with the mine waste piles, which, if you think about it, they're actually just piles of unconsolidated material. And so occasionally when we get significant flows or runoff, it will actually mobilize sediment or mine waste or tailings from these piles and move them downstream. And then the topography is also conducive for erosion as well. The soil up there is basically weathered granite. It's really loose and consolidated, so if you get significant runoff, you do tend to mobilize a pretty good amount of sediment in some of these channels. And dozens of mine waste piles. And a lot of these mine waste piles are actually located within or near stream channels in the Sugarloaf Mountain Mining District. And so some of these, you see streams running right against the piles. Here's another example in the Little Frying Pan Gulch. And some of them are actually away from stream channels, but when you think about 3 feet of snow sitting on top of them and you get rapid melt off, then you would probably expect to see quite a bit of loading from these piles as well. And we do have some impaired wetlands. This one's located near the Colorado Gulch, Lake Fork Creek confluence. And this wetland in particular is choked with sediment, so most of the water actually runs on the top and forms channels. And you also have some livestock that munch or eat this grass that's trying to grow. And then this wetland actually receives water from Colorado Gulch and Little Frying Pan. So this is about 1.5 miles downstream of the Tiger Tunnel. Now, one thing about the watershed group is we've had a lot of accomplishments. Right now we have a watershed plan that's always evolving, and so the watershed plan is actually located on our website through the CMC website, and it's something that's really valuable because it gives an idea about the health. It gives us a pulse of the watershed itself. And so it's always constantly being amended as data comes in, as projects end and projects start. And the idea is to look at how do we measure water quality improvements. And then it gives us a plan of how do we want to address some of these water quality issues. And so it's a very extensive plan. It took a lot of hard work. And some other accomplishments include remediation and reclamation of the Dinero, Nelson, and Tiger mine complexes. Some of these are still ongoing, especially the Tiger mine complex. So it takes years to accomplish these. And as you can imagine, we have a very short working season that puts a lot of constraints on finishing these projects. So we have approximately about 3 or 4 months out of the whole year to tackle the work in some of these areas. And then we have the Dinero Tunnel bulkhead and associated monitoring that Katie had just talked about as one of our primary accomplishments. So for a pictorial view, the first one is the Tiger Mine reclamation work that started in 2009, and the first step involved moving the big pile that resided below the tunnel. And so this is a view looking south. Lake Fork Creek runs about right here, and here's the Arkansas River. So it's approximately about 4 or 5 miles away from the Arkansas River. Now this pile was particularly troublesome because it actually had it was a significant source of loading because he had the tunnel water running into it, and then he had Little Frying Pan Gulch converging right above the tunnel and adding additional flow. So you had a constant source of water reacting with the mine waste and creating acid mine drainage associated with this pile. The chemistry of the Tiger Tunnel is also not great as well. And so this was a continuous cycle and continuous loading pretty much year-round. So when we did actually some studies of this pile, we found the paste pH of it to approximately about 1.8 to about 2.4 was the pH or the acidity of the solution that was generated. And so the pile was moved in 2010 and relocated to an off-site repository, which is pretty much about 50 yards away. So this is what it looked like immediately after the construction or removal of the mine waste. And an aerial view. I tried to get something that had everything facing the right way, but I couldn't find an exact picture. But to get a perspective, here's the pile that I just showed you before removal. The Tiger Tunnel is located right here. And then actually above the tunnel, there's a series of other piles associated with this mine complex. And it actually extends about a half mile further west of the Tiger Tunnel. And then this is actually where we cleared the site or cleared trees to put the repository. Now, the idea of the repository is to move the mine waste out of this drainage and put it in an area where we can isolate it from hydrologic contact. And it's encapsulated and buried, and then currently it's revegetated, so you can see some of the grass growing here. Here's the footprint where the pile used to reside, and here's the Tiger Tunnel located about right up here. Now, we have a few cells located downstream of the tunnel, and the idea right now is we're pursuing possibly getting a sulfate-reducing bioreactor placed in these cells. Right now, they're collecting water, and so that's the next project that we're currently working on. But all the mine waste piles located in this site, and there's actually some interception ditches on top, so it moves water off to the site. And so this project was actually overseen by the Colorado Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety. And then here's the Dinero. Originally, the tunnel portal was located about right over here behind this pile. And so right below the tunnel is an extensive wetland system. And so this pile was moved in 2004 and was undergone a similar operation at the Tiger Tunnel. So it was moved off-site and out of hydrologic control with the streams and the wetlands. This one was actually really close to the lake fork, so this was the highest priority the watershed group tackled. The actual movement left a footprint, and what it looks like right now, here's the Lake Fork Creek is located down here, Sugarloaf wetlands. And so this is a view looking east from the tunnel or the mine complex. So right now we're still accomplishing we're working on some reclamation work in this area to revegetate it, to stabilize it, to reduce sedimentation that might occur. Because that's one problem that is commonly encountered when you move these piles. You have a lot of loose and consolidated material, and so it'll require a significant amount of reclamation work in the form of vegetation and stabilization. And the bulkhead. So in July 2009, or the summer of 2009, it was constructed, and this is pretty much what it looks like now. And so there's still constant gauge readings going on. And we still do quite a bit of hydrologic monitoring besides the Sugarloaf monitoring that Katie talked about. So we actually look at it from the whole watershed to kind of get an idea about the health of the system as a whole. So some future work, the watershed group is always active. We're constantly looking to see how can we improve water quality that's been identified in the watershed plan. And some of the projects that are coming down the line include the Venture Mine Complex, which is located about a half mile downstream of the Tiger Tunnel. So generally from the watershed approach, we look at all the issues further up in the watershed, and in this particular site, we're looking at the Sugarloaf Mountain Mining District, addressing all the mine issues above or at the headwaters of these gulches and working our way down. Then some of the other projects include addressing some of the erosion issues and sedimentation, and then addressing some other mine waste piles located in close proximity to streams, and then continue reclamation efforts at the Dinero and Tiger mine sites. And like I said before, one of the big challenges is basically our short growing season, working season. So we can plant vegetation, then we have to wait 9 or 10 months later to see how well the vegetation efforts have taken place. So I guess questions will come after a little bit. So thank you.